I don't have to deal with that. Future Casey can deal with that. So that's future Casey's problem. But then it got to the point, it's like, okay, well, now future Casey's having to deal with it. So
What happens if you never pay your taxes? Just ask billionaire Robert Brockman. He had the largest tax evasion case in US history of $2 billion.
And you can do that by going into your W-2 and changing it to claim non-exempt, which means that you're not giving any of your money upfront to the government. You are taking 100% of your paycheck, but
we got a fun topic today, guys. Who doesn't want to talk about taxes? As Benjamin Franklin said, there are only two guarantees in life, and that is death and taxes. No one likes taxes, but everybody has to pay them, otherwise Uncle Sam will come to get you. Before we get into the video, I just want to address the real reason I had to film this today. This freeloader behind me hasn't paid a single cent in taxes for his entire existence. No W-2, no 1099, not even a single Venmo transaction that Uncle Sam could sniff out. He eats for free, sleeps all day, contributes nothing to the economy, and still has the audacity to bark at the mailman and all of our neighbors. Shadow, what do you have to say about this? He has no comment. Anyway, we have a wide array of TikTok clips today. We have famous people evading taxes and going to prison over it. We have the typical terrible TikTok advice that we're seeing from people who are not CPAs. We'll also talk about how the rich avoid paying taxes with tax loopholes and tax avoidance, which is a legal term. And we'll talk about what will happen if you don't file your taxes, because there's a lot that the IRS can do to you to really ruin your life in order to get you to pay. And of course, as featured in almost all of my videos, we're also going to be looking at some grifters who are spewing misinformation and taking advantage of people and trying to get you to buy their course. So let's get right into these clips.
I've filed taxes since 2020.
Did you even know this?
Uh-huh.
Oh, they did know. They just didn't let me know. Why the possible Why? Just why? It's just, I feel like you're collecting the just like stupid infinity stones of dumb.
So 2020 I, filed and I got a return. 2021 I was going to have to pay money and I didn't have the money. And so I was
How much?
like $300.
Oh! Go on.
The next year comes around and it was a little more. It was like
How much?
400, 500.
Oh, for sake, you're ruining your life on $750 so far. What the are you talking about? Go on!
This year, I actually would have.
You've made money this year.
I would have gotten a return, or not
this year.
Not this year. 2023. Sorry, not this year. This year.
Oh, good death. Okay, yep.
2023. I would have gotten a return, a small one. But they ask for a PIN from your last year's taxes, so you can file this year's now. And I didn't have that PIN, so I couldn't file it. So I have to do by mail and figure that out.
With penalties and everything, you probably only owe $1,000. Why not just get this taken care of before they come after your fucking wages and garnish you, hit you with penalties and interest? Why do this to yourself? Why put yourself in such a risky position at such a young age for no reason? I really don't understand.
I think I've just been pushing it out of my mind because it just stressed me out. So I was like, okay, let's just not think about this.
Every time people say that, though, this is like, I guess we just live our lives in a different way, my dude. It's just like putting off because I don't have to think about it. But it just becomes worse. And then you are forced to think about it. And then it's worse than it ever was if you just thought about it before. Why do that delay? Why not rip the Band-Aid off instead of letting it become infected? I'm so confused why you would do this.
Yeah, I think it's just like, okay, well, I don't have to deal with that. Future Casey can deal with that. So that's future Casey's problem. But then it got to the point, it's like, okay, well, now future Casey's having to deal with it. So
why would you put yourself in such a precarious position over barely any taxes? And like Caleb said, the interest and penalties has just been accruing this entire time. Just deal with it now, get it over with, rip the Band-Aid off, and go about your life and continue paying your taxes every year. The IRS has a copy of everything you're doing, your W-2s, your 1099s. They're watching, and they're just waiting for the best time to bust you. So what will happen if you don't file? Glad you asked. We're going to watch a few clips that will show what could happen to you.
I've had IRS notices where they've been like, you owe $283,000, and I've given it to you, and you're like, oh, dude, this is like, this is just an automated type of deal. But what if I don't respond and I just ignore it? What can the IRS do to me as a citizen, as a business owner? What are their powers?
At the first stage, they'll go ahead and continue to issue notices that will heighten in concern. In other words, it'll say intent to levy or take money out of your account. Then they'll actually go and do something like that. But the first they'll do is they'll assess the tax. In other words, the first notice you get is just saying, hey, we believe you might owe this. They give you a number of months before they actually start to do an assessment. And then once they assess it, then it goes out for collection. And then when it goes out for collection, then it could just be a matter of months before they start to levy or take money out of your bank accounts to the extent of what they think you owe based on just this assessed letter.
What if I don't have a bank account with any money in it?
I mean, then they could look to assets and your credit. In other words, they could look to try to put a lien on your credit, which means that'll prevent you from...
you could put a lien on something. So is that like when you garnish people's wages?
It's similar in the sense that it would prevent someone like yourself if you were trying to buy real estate and let's say you were trying to get a loan, the bank would say, well, we can't really do anything because there's this lien on your credit, which means that...
So it's a lien against your social security number?
Basically, yeah. Because
I have never heard of that.
Yeah, it's a problem.
What happens if you never pay your taxes? Just ask billionaire Robert Brockman. He had the largest tax evasion case in U.S. history of $2 billion. Brockman avoided paying his taxes for 20 years, used offshore accounts and shady aliases like Bonefish and Snapper to hide his identity. But the IRS Criminal Investigation Unit didn't let that slide and charged him with 39 counts of tax evasion, wire fraud, and money laundering. Now, if you forget to pay your taxes, you'll probably just get letters or phone calls from the IRS saying that you're past due. And if you ignore those, you'll get a notice of intent to levy, which means they're going to take everything you own, including a portion of your paycheck, not to mention you accrue extra penalties the entire time. If you continue to be delinquent, your assets or passports can be frozen, have a lien put on your house, and even face jail. In Brockman's case, he ended up passing away before he was sentenced. Let this be a lesson that the IRS doesn't play about its debts, and neither should you.
So there you have it. As you can see, the government will absolutely destroy life as you know it in order to get their tax money. It's just not worth the risk. They can garnish your wages, put a lien on your credit, take away your passport so you can't leave the country, make it so that you can't get an auto loan or a home loan, and levy your social security income once you're retired. I just don't understand how people take that risk. It is not worth it. Just do not play with the IRS and the government. Do not collect $200 and do not pass go. And the IRS doesn't care who you are. They don't care if you're rich or famous or poor and a nobody. They will get their money regardless.
In the late 1990s and early 2000s, Wesley Snipes appeared in a lot of successful movies that earned him millions of dollars. In fact, between the years of 1999 to 2004, Snipes made around $40 million from acting. As a result, Wesley owed millions of dollars in taxes to the U.S. government. However, unlike many other successful people with large tax obligations, Wesley has decided he was going to simply try to avoid paying any federal income taxes on his earnings during this time. So, he just did not file any income tax returns between the years of 1999 to 2004, despite making tens of millions of dollars in these years. As you can imagine, the IRS eventually caught on to this, and in 2006, Wesley Snipes was charged with one count of conspiring to defraud the United States. He was also charged with one count of knowingly and making or aiding abetting the making of a false and fraudulent claim for payments against the United States. He also had 6 counts of willfully failing to file federal income tax returns by their filing dates.
We also have to take into account the fact that Wesley Snipes was popular in the late 90s and early 2000s, so that's when he earned the majority of his money. $40 million in the year 2000 is equivalent to almost $75 million today. And of course, the more money you make, the more money you're taxed. However, if I had $75 million and I had to pay about 40% tax, you best believe I would be happy to give 40%, 50% to the government for my taxes, because the rest of it I would be set and I could just live off of that. But Wesley's finances were unfortunately pretty heavily affected by the legal troubles related to tax evasion. He also ended up serving time in prison and had to pay back taxes, penalties, and interest, all which add up pretty considerably. As you can see, there's not a lot of people that are exempt from paying taxes, including famous celebrities, except rich people. Rich people have found some pretty interesting loopholes to avoid paying taxes.
If you look at someone like an Elon Musk, they never even take a salary. And people don't know about this thing called loaning against your assets. I didn't know about it. And I think it's a big secret that people need to know about.
Elon Musk is interesting because he's a risk taker. And he chose to get paid not in salary. And if we look at the tax benefit from this, it's because you are taxed not on your income. That's not what the tax code says. You are taxed based on your taxable income. And so what Elon Musk did is when he was building Tesla, he negotiated with the investors and the board that I want to get paid not with a salary, I want to get paid with stock options. A stock option gives you the right to buy that stock. He doesn't have any money in his bank. He hasn't gotten a salary, so he has no taxable income because he hasn't actually received any money. He goes to the bank and he says, hey bank, I have these millions and millions of stock options that are worth billions of dollars. Would you like to loan me $1 million, $10 million, $100 million, 3, 4, or 5% interest? No bank is going to say no because the collateral is so valuable, which is Tesla in this instance. So then he gets, let's call it a $10 million loan from the bank. Now he has $10 million in his bank account, but it's not an income. It's debt. Debt is not taxed. If you go out and get a mortgage for $500,000, you're not taxed. If you do a cash out refinance, you're not taxed because that's debt. So now he gets this $10 million of loans that he can spend to buy a house, to buy a car, to buy food, to buy vacations, to buy whatever you want, and pay no money in taxes. And it's 100% legal.
And that's how the rich just keep getting richer and avoid paying taxes. But now you might be asking yourself, how come us regular folk can't do this? And here's why.
My goal is to pay $0 in taxes. Can you help me make that happen? In the short term, sure. I could think of some ways to help you pay $0 in taxes. No. Not just in the short term. I don't want to be paying taxes any year. Can you help me make that happen? Are you, like, independently wealthy? Like, you have a lot of cash that you can live off of? No, definitely not. Okay, you're married, so, I mean, the standard deduction is like $29,000. Can you live off of less than $30,000 a year? No, not even close. I need a ton more money than that. Okay, so it sounds like you're more so going to be in the boat of someone who can do some short-term plays of paying $0 in taxes, but can't be long-term, can't be forever. Well, why am I always hearing about rich people paying $0 in taxes every year? Do they just know something that you don't know? Do I need a better accountant? Well, typically when people say they're paying $0 in taxes every year, they're either lying or they're exaggerating about what every year means. People certainly pay taxes, and especially rich people. But also, understand, it's not necessarily something that I'm missing. I don't know everything, but it's not necessarily something that I don't know that other accountants know. It's something that the rich people have that you don't have. What's that? Wealth. They are able to live with little to no earned income year after year because their assets are able to provide for their needs. It's not going to be forever, but they could certainly do it for much longer than you or I could because they have wealth. So what do you say? I'm going to have to pay taxes for a number of years before I'm going to get to the point where I might be able to pay little to no taxes for multiple years at a time? Actually, in the pursuit of wealth, yeah, you're going to go through a number of years of paying taxes to accumulate enough dollars to be able to buy those assets, to be able to provide for your standard of living. So, yeah, that's about accurate.
Unless you have millions or billions of dollars or are wealthy, this is not going to work for the average Joe. Sadly, because I would love to do this. And that is what people mean when they say the rich don't pay taxes. Now we can move over to the side of TikTok where people are just giving straight up bad advice about taxes.
Okay, hear me out here. There's something called a forever payment plan. And it's when you call the IRS and you ask to be put on a payment plan, or you create an account on the IRS website and then you put yourself on the payment plan. Now, with the forever payment plan, you pay on it forever. Okay, the reason is because you're typically paying towards the interest. You're not paying towards the principal, so you're not really bringing down that tax liability amount. All right, so instead of calling the IRS and putting yourself on the payment plan, call the IRS and put yourself on the currently non-collectible status instead, because the statute of limitation date runs out on the currently non-collectible status, but not on a payment plan. And remember, the currently non-collectible status is when you don't make any payments monthly. It's when your payments are deferred. Okay, so that is income-based. It's typically for people that are on lower income, but if you prove that your income exceeds your expenses, then that's not necessarily an option for you. You're going to want to ask to be on an installment agreement. Now, the difference between installment agreement and the payment plan is that with the installment agreement, you're going to be paying down the principal because you're paying more monthly with less interest. Payment plan, you're paying less monthly more interest, and longer. Probably forever. Call and get yourself on a currently non-collectible status instead.
So just straight up terrible, wrong advice, and here's why. This is taken directly from the IRS website itself. If we determine that you cannot pay any of your tax debt, we may report your account currently not collectible and temporarily delay collection until your financial condition improves. Being currently not collectible does not mean the debt goes away. It means the IRS has determined you cannot afford to pay the debt at this time. This is important right here. You should know that if we do delay collecting from you, your debt will increase because penalties and interest are charged until you pay the full amount. We may also file a notice of federal tax lien to protect the government's interests in your assets. And the whole basis of this strategy, if you could even call it that, is that you're claiming financial hardship for years of your life. This is the opposite of what we should be aspiring to, guys. We want financial freedom. We do not want to be in a position of financial hardship for years and years of our lives, just to avoid paying taxes. If you're wondering what a federal tax lien is, it's the government's legal claim against your property when you neglect or fail to pay a tax debt. The lien protects the government's interests in all your property, including real estate, personal property, and financial assets. This whole situation can just be avoided if we pay our taxes in full and on time. Of course, it doesn't end there. I got some more terrible financial advice straight from TikTok.
If you're a W-2 worker, stop paying your taxes. I saw a couple TikToks, but I can't remember the creator. Basically, if you're a W-2 worker, that means that a portion of your paycheck, bi-weekly, weekly, or whatever, taxes get taken out, and then at the end of the year you file your taxes, because if you've paid too much taxes to the government, they then owe you a refund, or if you didn't pay enough, you have to owe and pay money. But a lot of people get refunds, and if you get a refund, that means the government just had extra money from you, you overpaid them, here's some back. But also while we're paying taxes, the government gets our money up front. Every month they're getting income from us, and now they're going to use it to do horrendous. If you don't support all of the new programs that this administration is doing with our tax money, then don't give them the money. And you can do that by going into your W-2 and changing it to claim non-exempt, which means that you're not giving any of your money upfront to the government. You are taking 100% of your paycheck, but at the end of the year when you do your taxes, you are going to owe. So you should probably set some of that money aside. But what it does is it prevents the government from getting too much money and then owing you a return, and it also prevents the government from getting your money up front, so they don't have it to borrow and use and spread horrible shit with. So I don't know, I am not a W-2 worker anymore. I'm self-employed, so that's what I do anyway. I have all my money, and then I'm gonna have to give some back to the government to pay my taxes. But I think that's cool. It's a cool way to take your money back and your power back. Don't give it to them up front. Find your own money.
And we can read some of the comments here. Not paying my taxes until the rich pay their taxes. No taxation without representation. Don't give it to them at all. We're not filing either. And finally, one rational person in the comments, I asked my accountant. They said most people can be subject to penalties, so take what she said with a grain of salt. And we got another rational person, thankfully. You still have to send IRS an estimated quarterly amount, or you owe money plus the current interest rate and penalties. Y'all really need to talk to accountants. The IRS wants their consistent money throughout the year, and they do this by withholding money from your paychecks if you're a W-2 employee. However, if you're self-employed or an independent contractor or a freelancer, you have to pay what's called quarterly taxes. Again, we can confirm this straight from the IRS website, estimated taxes. Taxes must be paid as you earn or receive income during the year, either through withholding or estimated tax payments. If you don't pay enough tax through withholding and estimated tax payments, you may have to pay a penalty. You also may have to pay a penalty if your estimated tax payments are late, even if you are due a refund when you file your tax return. If you earn a salary and work for a company, you probably filled out Form W-4 when you first started your job, and that's so your employer can withhold the proper amount of taxes and pay them on your behalf to the IRS.
Know that taxes go to just interest on debt, and it goes to other countries to bail them out and launder money for politicians and bankers. So why exactly is anybody paying taxes? I'm actually asking this question. You realize, you see how incompetent the government is, right? So let me talk to you idiots on the right. I pick on the right more than the left because the left are usually a bunch of mental patients, but let me really pick on you guys. You guys have been floating these pictures around about how incompetent the Secret Service is, and Do you really think that the rest of the government is more competent than the Secret Service? So if they're that incompetent and they're that stupid, they can't holster their weapon properly, they're all 300 pounds, and they're all morons, why the are you paying these people $1 at this point? I think that's a legitimate God question, don't you?
Because we have to, and because it's the law. Also, I'm not going to be taking any advice from someone who calls it the Secret Cervix. The comments are great on this one. Someone said, "What the heck is the Secret Cervix?" 3 years strong, and the creator replied, "This is the way." Finally a rational person here, because if you don't, you'll go to jail. I agree with him on some things. We see what happens with our money when we give it to the IRS, and as we can see, the national debt just keeps growing day by day, and we're now in the 30 trillions, I think. But just because we disagree with what the government does with taxpayer money doesn't mean we can just stop paying taxes. And last but certainly not least, here are some clips from the grifters and scammers of TikTok that are preying on people that don't want to pay their taxes.
As we all know, that our U.S. tax system is a voluntary tax system, and we depend on people willing every year to sit down, fill out that form, and pay their appropriate amount of taxes. So I really think enforcement is a reward to those who voluntarily comply. And I think if the public does not see that the IRS is enforcing the laws, we're going to be at risk of losing people continuing to voluntarily comply.
Okay, so I want to explain this. How could taxation be voluntary for some and mandatory for others? Allow me to explain. As we can see here, right here in the tax return forms and instructions, it clearly states that the tax system is based on voluntary compliance. What does that mean? And if you go to the IRS website, look at their criminal investigation reports every single year and go search for the word voluntary. And you'll see they'll tell you compliance with the tax laws in the United States depends heavily on taxpayer self-assessment of the amount of tax, voluntary filing of tax returns, and remittance of any tax owed. This is frequently termed voluntary compliance.
There is so much misinformation in that TikTok, and we can dispute this by going, again, straight to the IRS website. They have an entire webpage dedicated to frivolous tax arguments, and that is exactly what this man in this video is trying to argue. This document describes and responds to some of the common frivolous arguments made by individuals and groups who oppose compliance with the federal tax laws. And then the website breaks out each tax argument and has a link for you to click and read more about it. So we can address the first one, which is the voluntary nature of the federal income tax system. This man is trying to argue that income tax is voluntary, and so we don't have to pay it. So this is what the law says. The word voluntary refers to our system of allowing taxpayers initially to determine the correct amount of tax and complete the appropriate returns, rather than have the government determine tax for them from the outset. The requirement to file an income tax return is not voluntary and is clearly set forth in sections of the Internal Revenue Code. So there we go, we just dispelled his claim that the tax system is voluntary. It is not.
Now, why does our tax system depend so heavily on taxpayers self-assessing the amount of tax that they owe? Because all along, you've been allowed to report all your income on your taxes, but declare it as non-taxable. So this is a Federal Reserve note. This is America's default currency. We all use this, we get paid in this, and when we buy groceries or gifts for family, this is the type of money that we use. And think about it. Since this bank, the Federal Reserve, prints this currency, they make your life easier, right? They do, and they know that. So at the end of the year, they charge everybody a service fee or convenience fee for using the bills that they print. That convenience fee is called income tax. Every Federal Reserve note that gets printed into circulation becomes an obligation of the U.S. government to pay back directly to the Federal Reserve Bank, which is a private corporation. And Uncle Sam passes the bill to us. Paying off this national debt to these Federal Reserve bankers is the sole and only reason why we have an income tax. Now, this is 100% legal, and rich people do this every year. You're actually allowed to opt out of having to pay the service fee by demanding that your income be treated as United States notes, the older kind of money that used to be in circulation until the 70s. This may sound a little bit complicated, but by default, our money is taxable because it's Federal Reserve currency. You actually have a choice every single year when you file your taxes to demand that your income be treated as non-taxable notes issued by the U.S. Treasury.
And looky here, there's another counter-argument to his claim that Federal Reserve notes are not income. Proponents of this contention assert that Federal Reserve notes currently used in the US are not valid currency and cannot be taxed because Federal Reserve notes are not gold or silver and may not be exchanged for gold or silver. This argument misinterprets Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution. The courts have rejected this argument on numerous occasions.
What makes taxation voluntary, because all along you could have been filing your taxes, reporting your income as taxable, like 99.99% of uninformed Americans do, or you can declare your income as non-taxable, like the 1% do. Both of these are legal. The IRS will accept either tax return, but they want you to report your income, calculate what you owe, and pay what your bill says. You can simply use 12 U.S.C. 411 to have a $0 tax bill every single year. Now, this process works, and I'm telling you it works because I went through it as a client. When I did this process, I had $8,351 that came out of my pay during the year. When I filed my taxes with this process, I didn't just get back that $8,300, I actually got back $8,516, more than I ever paid into the tax system. I actually got paid a bonus in interest, an extra $160, because I'm not a taxpayer. I'm tax exempt. All that money that I gave to these people was a loan. And when you file with this process, you call that loan and due, you get 100% of your money refunded. Now, you can do the same thing. Being tax exempt is not just for the rich and the wealthy. I'm a regular person who used this process. Go to Taxpayer Shutdown 2025, watch the full video, register for the live workshop every Thursday, get all your questions answered. These people have CPAs that'll file your taxes for you with this tax exemption process. I'm only telling you this works because I'm someone who did it as a client, and I want people to know that this is the right way to do it.
So there you have it. We've just disputed both of his claims, which are that the nature of the federal income tax system is voluntary and Federal Reserve notes are not income. It's not easy to get out of paying taxes because if it was, then everybody would be doing it, including CPAs and attorneys.
Have you ever wished that you can keep more of your hard-earned money instead of losing it to taxes? What if I told you there's a legal and ethical way to do just that? A way to significantly reduce your tax liability. It's called the 508c1a Trust. It's a special type of organization that is exempt from federal income tax. It's fully IRS compliant and can be a powerful tool to manage your wealth. By setting up a 508c1a Trust, you're not just saving on taxes. You're protecting your assets and securing your financial future. If you're ready to take control of your financial destiny, please like and follow and click the link in my bio and you can schedule a free 30-minute phone call with me. We are here to guide you every step of the way of setting up your 508c1a Trust.
These grifters like to use the same exact script. Like and follow, comment taxes for more, click the link in my bio. It's always the same. And they end up getting more engagement because people like, they follow, they comment, and that ends up helping the video get pushed out. So not only is their video getting pushed out to more people, they end up profiting more because more people see their video and more people buy their bogus course, and that's how these people make money.
What's crazy to me is the amount of absolute misinformation that exists on social media with regard to financial related content. You see, 508c1a refers essentially to a section of the Internal Revenue Code that deals with how churches and other related religious organizations can establish themselves as charitable entities without necessarily going through the exact same steps as a 501c entity. However, it still means it's within the confines and jurisdictions of the United States. It's firmly rooted in the law. And what is interesting is that this has nothing to do with whether or not you're able to truly escape taxation. Yes, absolutely. You get a tax deduction for sending half of your money to the church, but that doesn't mean you get to personally enjoy the money you send that way. So if you're just interested in reducing your taxable income by 50% and not necessarily being able to enjoy that money yourself, well, go ahead, follow a strategy like this. But there's a big difference between tax evasion and tax avoidance, and it's about 20 years in prison.
And I hope this just serves as another reminder not to believe everything we see online and take it at face value. But I know that my viewers are very smart and they don't do that anyway. I just had to dispel some of the myths that I was seeing in some of these clips. So that's all I have for you guys today. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please like, comment, and subscribe, and also comment down below a dog emoji so I know you watched the whole thing. If you enjoyed today's video, I also think you'll like the one popping up on screen right here. But thank you guys again for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!